All right, everybody have a seat. Good morning, jurors. You got everybody? And everybody's ready to get to work? All right, thanks for your patience. Defense, you ready to call your next witness? Dr. Rubino, come on up, sir. Follow Deputy Dunkley. And Doc, when you get into the well of the courtroom, just watch your step. We got some wires. And when you get out to the middle, if you'd raise your right hand, face Mr. Clerk for us. And you'll have a seat right up there. Please watch your step. And when you get in there, if you please get that microphone close to your mouth, speak directly into it for us. And once you're all comfortable, got yourself set up, if you would state your full name and spell it for us.
My name is Mark Patrick Rubino. R-U-B-O, I am now. Mark and Eric.
You may proceed.
Thank you. And Dr. Rubino, what do you do? What is your occupation?
I am a neurologist.
Let me talk to you for a minute about your background. What is your educational background?
High school. Then I went to Kent State University, part of the what's called 6-year PhD program, an association with Northeastern Ohio University College of Medicine. After completing my medical degree, I went to Akron State Hospital in Akron, Ohio, to do my transitional residency. And then I did 3 years of neurology at USF in Tampa.
And currently, do you have your own practice, or what is your practice?
I have my own practice. I'm a general neurologist. I do many different neurological diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, epilepsy, balance problems, neuropathy, a lot of headaches, neck pain, back pain, a lot of pinched nerves, head injuries, a lot of injuries. People can hurt themselves quite a bit.
So I'm going to show you what's marked as Defense Exhibit 20. Just ask you this document summarizes the work you've done.
Is there a battery? Without objection? Admitted.
And doctor, just so I'm clear, it appears you received your medical degree when you were 25 years old?
Actually, that's 24.
24. Smart.
Yeah, it's called Doogie Howser.
So, what is neurology?
Well, neurology is the study of, or the evaluation and management of diseases of the nervous system, including brain, spinal cord, nerves, and muscle. So any disease that affects that is neurology.
And so I want to talk to you specifically about the brain.
Okay.
We can talk about that a little bit. Are there different parts of the brain?
Yes.
And what are they?
Well, to speak very general, you have hemispheres, your frontal lobe, your temporal lobe, parietal, and occipital. And then you have your subcortical, mid-ganglia, your midbrain, pons, medulla, cerebellum, and then we can get very nitty-gritty here.
Let me direct you specifically to the frontal and temporal lobes. What is sort of the job of the frontal lobe?
Well, most behavior arises out of your frontal and temporal lobes. Most of your frontal lobe is considered the executive force, like the CEO of a company. It kind of directs, makes decisions. It quantifies whether something is good or bad, right or wrong, any kind of direction, planning. Basically appreciating if something is right or wrong. Whereas the temporal lobe houses part of the brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is an emotional power, basically it's an emotional regulator, part of the limbic system. Although the temporal lobe has other functions such as language as well. It also is responsible for a lot of emotional regulation and response to other people's emotion.
And what tools as a neurologist do you use to diagnose neurological problems?
Well, the foremost, I do what a doctor should do, which is a history of physical. I'll go in, take tracing history, see if there's any history of head injuries, if there's any medical conditions that may cause a problem, any type of childhood issues that may have caused a problem. And then I'll do a neurological examination to see what's normal, what's abnormal. And then if I see anything abnormal, then I'll go further and over an MRI and a CT PET scan.
And did you conduct a neurological evaluation of Christopher Vasata?
I did.
So I want to start with the examination. Did you conduct an examination as you discussed?
Yes.
And what did that involve?
Well, it involves a very basic look at it.
And so you get a history of...
Well, after a history of a car accident back when he was 20. It was a pretty horrific accident. He come over to the hospital, but he had been in the rear back of a truck, sort of, that had gone off the road because he was bounced around within it. Because he had a large abrasion over the left forehead. He had been appearing to be sitting in the right rear, unrestrained. So he must have bounced around in there and hit his head on a window.
So first, as you're talking about those types of accidents, you mentioned about the laceration. Is there concern for, so that's from an impact, right, the laceration?
Typically it's from blunt trauma, where the skin actually splits.
Are there other concerns for brain damage in that type of accident in terms of just the movement and motion, sudden motions to the brain?
But typically, when you have your head hit something, you have what's called acceleration, deceleration type injury, where your skull hits the window, and then your brain hits your skull, and then bounces back. It gets kind of this contra-coup type concept, whereas you have an injury to the part of the brain that actually the skull hits, and then on bounce back, the back part of the brain also gets impacted.
In addition to getting a history, do you conduct any sort of tests?
I do a neurological examination, which is, I did a MOCA, which is a Montreal Cognitive Assessment. It's just a one-page, fairly quick mental status examination. And what I found was he had a little bit of short-term memory loss. But he had a significant amount of impulsivity. In fact, one thing he did, which I never saw before, was a subsection on where you draw a clock with numbers on it and simply put the time on it. So he drew the clock okay, and he put time on it. But before I told him to put time on it, I put the wrong time on it. So it's a very impulsive thing. And it was impulsive throughout the rest of the test. Let's see if there's anything else. He had a little weakness in his left arm. Not sure what that's from. He had weakness in the right leg because the gunshot went to the right pulse.
Did your assessment indicate the need for additional testing?
Well, he scored 25 out of 30 on MOCA. He had a laceration, a history of a head injury, and was younger. For the testing warranted, so I ordered the CT PET and the MRI.
So let's talk first about the MRI. What does an MRI look at?
Okay. An MRI is an imaging study that basically looks at structure. MRI is different than CAT scan, and that CAT scan is based on bone and calcium, and you really can't see soft tissue that well, whereas MRI is based on water content. So it's much better at looking at soft tissue, blood, water versus edema versus bone isn't going to look at that well. But the brain itself looks really well.
And do you in fact have the slides from the MRI?
I do. I have a few select images kind of showing a couple of things.
Okay, let's take a look at them. How I can do that.
Okay.
Would you like to sit down? Sure, just watch your step.
This shows one.
And Doc, can you do me one favor? Could you, here, we're gonna grab that microphone, I'm gonna put it close to you so we can make sure the jury can hear you. Thank you, Ms. Howard.
So there's this one lesion right there. And as I was looking at it, I wasn't, you see these all the time in older people, but he's only 26 years old. So where you can also see them is in that acceleration, deceleration of injury where you have the brain kind of traveling at different rates. So you have tearing within the axons. So you have what's called axonal shear. And the most likely cause of this lesion is some axonal shear. Doesn't have a lot of it, but nonetheless it's there. The other issue is atrophy or shrinkage. Parts of the brain that aren't working as well, that have been damaged, sometimes don't scream bloody murder in terms of showing white lesions, etc. Sometimes all you see is shrinkage of the parts. And one of the ways we can tell shrinkage of the parts is not by the actual part itself, but the amount of spinal fluid in between the gyri and around the edges of it. That's supposed to be here, but that's not supposed to be there. You still see some increased space. And as they go up, you'll see less space in the brain because we're getting away from this area. Like in here, it's much more tightly packed. And go back to anyhow, the temporal lobes just show a little atrophy, and then the lesion in the right hemisphere with the shearing forces. And actually, not the oh, there we go. There we go. All right, now we're on to PET scan.
Let's stop for a minute and talk about PET scan. What does the PET scan show that is different than the MRI?
Well, PET scan is different than MRI because PET scan is a better test of looking at function as opposed to structure. A PET scan is done by administering glucose that has a radioactive label to it. So parts of the brain that use more glucose will have more radioactivity associated with them. It's not radioactivity, we're not poisoning people. And it'll be brighter or more red for the parts that are using more glucose.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's a good thing. It means it's using it. It's a bad thing it's the tumor somewhere, because that uses a lot of glucose too. But we're not talking about tumors here, we're talking about brain function. For example, this image here
And these are all images of Christopher's.
These are all, I have no comparisons here. I use his own brain to compare different parts of things. All right, so basically cortex, part along the cortex here is supposed to be really symmetrically red all the way around. But we can see little patches in between. And it's hard to see, and we'll get this in a new technology in a little bit, called NeuroQuant. For now, we're just going to look at it or eyeball it. But I wanted to show you how bright the red is here. I don't have nothing down here, so excuse me. There it is. That's right. Okay. This is the temporal lobes we're talking about. How they were atrophied and how much loss of red there is in here. Typically, there's some less seen, but this is much greater than normal. So these are really, and the cerebellum is also decreased too. The cerebellum should actually more, but that represents what we call a conjunctive injury. The opposite when the brain slashes backwards.
So those areas that you're pointing out should be that red,
Right in here. Wow, the tremor pops up. That should be red. This should be this should be this color. And as we go up, we can see that persists throughout the temporal lobes. The temporal lobes get beat up more in head injury because they're right next to the really tough part of the skull. It's a really bony part. In fact, it's called St. Peter's Rock because it's so hard and so thick. And as the brain sloshes up against it, it wins. And this is just no activity within the area we would think that amygdala is.
and it should be active.
It should be colorful, not green. And as we get a little higher, we start to see some more red here. Now we get the brain, parts of the brain that weren't affected.
So these slides sort of are taking us
Well, these are-
inside out.
These are axis images, which means they're like slices of the brain going up. I'm going to show you a slide in a little bit that is just a single slice slicing down, called a coronal. But you can still see the same type process. And as we get into the brain, you still get some of these patchy areas of decreased signal. There's the coronal, I promised. That's the temporal lobe. That's the early part of the, I think this is parietal here. There's a pretty big difference between the two.
So the temporal lobe should actually be that same red.
This red should go all the way down and around. And should go into here. This is all cortex. Cortex is where our neuronal cell bodies are. That's basically the body of the neuron. And that's basically where all the energy is used by the cell body of the neuron. The cell bodies aren't consuming much, they're not working very well. Okay, another picture. It's kind of hard to see, and it's a decrease. So what we do next is this NeuroQuant.
Okay?
Okay.
So let's talk about what this is. NeuroQuant.
NeuroQuant is a proprietary technology. It's not cheap. And it basically takes these images, breaks them down little voxels, little small sections of it, really tiny sections of it, and rates the color of it by certain, gives it a numerical value. And it compares the numerical value against age-matched controls, meaning that I'm just eyeballing it, but this is comparing it against other people who are normal. And it'll rate their signal within a statistical analysis within, I think, standard deviation or whether it's abnormal or not. So the blue over here, which is the frontal lobe section. This frontal lobe, this is cingulate gyrus. Cingulate gyrus is also kind of implicated in emotion as well. It's another part of this system, so it's probably not working as well because the amygdala is not working very well. And then we see the temporal lobes again. Right in here is actually really see it. And you see this here above them down here. Nothing to it. The next slide blows up for you to see. Through the front of the brain, back of the brain, temporal lobes, back of the brain, temporal lobes. Not sure whether the midbrain and pons is decreased, but likely because of loss of upstream neurons. So it's called Wallerian degeneration, or parts that send pathways down are working.
So just so I'm clear, the blue area is the area that, when compared to normal healthy brains.
These are the abnormal spots. These are the parts statistically significantly different than normal brains.
All right, good. And I'm going to move into evidence, the.
Presentation?
Yes.
No objection?
This
Admitted.
is 21.
21 days? Thank you. And on your way back to the podium, grab that microphone, please.
So, Dr. Rubino, before we talk about what the impact is in terms of Christopher's behavior and thinking on the neurological damage, I want to just ask you a little bit about brain development generally, healthy brain development. At age 24, is it expected that the brain is fully developed, or do we still have more growing to do?
44 is it's not quite where they consider maturity at 25. And I think I've been asked the question before whether or not a concussion could further delay that maturation process. And I don't think there's any studies showing that, but I would suspect that there is some part delay in that because the brain is trying to recover from a brain injury.
So rather than being able to continue sort of normal growth, the sort of effort is made to recover and heal. And is there any difference between men and women with regards to sort of normal brain development, or is it the same?
Not aware of any.
Okay. So, in terms of, again, the origin of the brain damage, you've talked about the car accident when several years prior to 20 or so years old. Was there anything else that in Christopher's history could contribute to this brain damage?
He told me about some head injuries he had when he was playing football. He did that for a couple of years. And he wasn't sure he might have been in a car accident when he was a little kid. He can't remember back then.
And is there any way in looking at the slides in which that you can determine the actual origin of the neurological damage?
I cannot tell which injury came from, other than it's like an injury because of the distribution of the deficits.
And do people have injuries like this that don't get diagnosed?
Yes, there's many people out there with concussions, and they're not all doing things that are criminal either. But they're having the poison in their lives, they get frustrated easily, they tend to get agitated, they don't tolerate stress very well, they tend to do worse at work and then eventually apply for Social Security disability if they're working people.
But it's not like necessarily an injury that you know you have and need to go see a doctor about.
Depends on what kind of work you're doing. If you're an executive and you're trying to make decisions and you're under a lot of stress, you get a head injury, you're going to notice it a lot more. But if you're in a position where you don't really use your brain that much, you're not going to stress the deficits until you're in a situation. So even the person themselves don't even know they have a problem until they're put in a certain situation. I do car accidents. I see a lot of people with head injuries. A lot of people that I see are working, people that work offices, and they tend to report back that they have difficulty doing the job they're supposed to do. Learning new tasks is particularly difficult. Their stress tolerance is much less. I mean, their anxiety levels spike, they have insomnia, and they tend to have worse relationships.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how, from your evaluation of Christopher's neurological damage, what the effects would be on Christopher's behavior. And I want to first sort of talk about the frontal lobe.
Well, his frontal lobe, he still has a frontal lobe, and it works to some degree. It's just some altered function. And that an altered function would be in aspects of executive function. The decision making, the right and wrong, the judgment, impulsivity, planning. People with head injuries have a more difficult time planning. They can still plan, but more difficult.
And might it impact someone's sort of probability of following other people's plans, given their own deficits?
If you think about it, if you're not able to plan very well yourself and your judgment is impaired, someone gives you direction, you're more likely to take it, you know how much direction to turn on.
Now, what about the temporal lobe damage? What would be the anticipated impact on Christopher's behavior?
The makeup being responsible for emotional regulation prevents self-regulating, or being able to calm yourself down very much like a normal person. So you're much more likely to be either calm, but if provoked, quickly agitated, and cannot return back to the baseline very easily. Either on and agitated or not. No between.
And how about the combination of the frontal lobe and temporal lobe damage?
Now you get the propensity for agitation, impulsiveness, loss of appreciation of behavior and helpfulness, and like I said earlier, it increases the chances of following someone else's bad plan.
Now, what you have seen with regards to Christopher's neurological impairment, this doesn't mean he's not responsible for his actions, right?
No, he's not insane. At some point, he'll understand that it was wrong. It's just that in the moment, quick decision making, that's impaired.
Sure.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Dr. Rubino.
Ross? Good morning.
How many death penalty cases have you participated in?
I just looked the other day.
I'm sorry?
I just looked the other day, and I have been retained in 50 cases.
50 death penalty cases you've been retained in?
Maybe 45 and then 5 of them not.
45 separate death penalty cases?
There are a lot of death penalty cases in the state of Florida.
And so when is it that you began to become a consultant, so to speak, for people facing the death penalty in the state of Florida?
2012.
2012. And have you always been retained by defense attorneys?
Yes. And my usual response to that is the state has never asked me.
And of those 45, how many death row people facing the death penalty did you find some type of brain abnormality in?
Probably about a third.
33%?
I've only testified maybe 10. I've had all these cases, but a lot of them don't have anything, you know. There's no reason for me to be testifying.
And when were you retained in this case?
A couple months ago.
And when was it that Mr. Vasata received a PET scan and what other tests did you do?
MRI,
MRI,
about a month ago.
a month ago. Do you have a report? Did you prepare a medical report outlining your findings?
I did not.
Rather odd for a doctor, isn't it, not to prepare a report?
Not necessarily in this business.
So there's no way for us to track your specific findings and detail exactly what you did in this case?
The neuroquant is an effective report of the PET scan. And the MRI, I don't know if it was correct or not, but a lot of times the center has a report. I don't think they should have a report.
Okay. Well, you spoke with Mr. Vasata, didn't you?
I did.
And did you notate exactly what you asked him and what he responded?
Did I note?
Did you?
Oh, yeah, I have handwritten notes.
You have handwritten notes. Do you have them with you?
I have my iPad. Email
Can
it.
I see them? Sir, I'm going to ask you some questions about that in a moment, but let me ask you a few follow-up questions, or a few questions first. When was it that Mr. Vasata, defendant Vasata, had this accident?
2012,
And do you remember the date and the time?
October something, 2012, I don't remember specifically.
Did you review the medical reports from the hospital?
I had one sheet of the repairable laceration.
I'm sorry, what?
I had one sheet to review of repairable laceration.
About prepared, what does that mean?
Laceration to the scalp. I just had to repair it. That's the only record I had.
You had a what of it? I'm sorry.
One page of paper
Uh-huh,
that documented the repair of the laceration over the forehead.
okay. So you had one medical record, one page of a medical record?
I had the crash report.
Okay. Well, I'm more interested in hospital records. Did you review, did you go to the hospital or contact the hospital and say, you know what, I'd like all the medical records from the injury that Christopher Vasata had that evening?
I don't have them.
Did you ask for them?
Didn't. I still don't have them.
And so, but you got one report, if I could approach, I think, let me show you, is this what you had? Is this page 2 of 5?
This is it.
So it's, it says page 2 of 5, and it looks like a medical discharge report, right? From St. Mary's, I think? I'm not actually sure. Yeah, St. Mary's, right?
Yes.
So it,
Let's clarify for the record. I'm seeing from a distance, is that part of the exhibit that was put into evidence?
Yes.
And what was the number again? Can you tell me? I just want the record to be accurate.
thank you, Judge.
Nope. At the beginning, it was a crash report and medical, one page. It was a composite, and I want to say it was about number 3 or 4. Should leave now. I got one right. Number 4, A and B. You got
So
it.
it's the last page, or I think it was the last page of defense exhibit number 4. So are we to assume that it says page 2 of 5, so we're to assume that there were five pages of a medical discharge, right?
Yes.
And you didn't see page 1, 3, 4, or 5, correct?
That's correct.
And the one that we have here says he's discharged that same night, right?
It appears that way.
Well, it says arrival time, date October 27th, 2012, right? And then it says discharge, October 27th, right?
Right.
Okay. And it just says, it looks like he got some stitches, and it says, please keep wounds clean, wash with soap and water, apply Bacterin ointment, right?
Yes.
And because you've used some words here today about brain injury, right?
That's what the imaging supports.
All right. Brain injury, head trauma, right?
Yes.
In this report, it doesn't say anything about a head injury, a brain injury, does it?
He was in an accident and trauma alerted to the hospital with the laceration of his head.
Right.
This hospital didn't do a CAT scan.
I'm sorry, what?
They didn't, as far as I can know, they didn't even do a CAT scan.
Okay. Well, you don't know, though. Did you ask him?
Well, 5 pages. He didn't tell me anything about his hospitalization.
This is a minor injury, then. It's only 5 pages worth of a medical report, correct?
My experience states that it's only as much as they think it's a severe injury or not.
You also stated that Vasata told you about some head injuries playing sports.
Yes, football, a couple years.
Did you track those records down?
Concussion, football concussion records, I've never been able to obtain them, so no,
Okay, well, if he was taken to the hospital due to
well, not even said he was not taken to the hospital with these, it was just, dazed and confused a little bit after a tackle.
Okay, so did Vasata tell you he had ever been taken to the hospital for a head injury other than this car
I
accident?
don't think so.
Well, you don't think so, or you know so?
I don't, he did not tell me that he did.
Well, did you ask him?
I mean, he broke his right femur several times.
Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with the brain, does it?
Well, it gives the nature of his character and recklessness even as a kid. He jumping up a refrigerator at 8, jumping up a tree at jumping up a refrigerator at age 5, jumping up a tree at age 8, jumped a ramp on a dirt bike at 11, his head and broke his leg.
Okay, do you have any records for those? Did you
Yeah.
track them down?
Medical records that are over 7 years are almost impossible to get, so I don't even try.
So you didn't even try, right?
They're over 7 years, I never find them.
Okay, well,
People, unless it's military.
help me out, I'm a little confused. Did he even go to the hospital? I thought you said that you didn't know if he went to the hospital.
I don't think he broke his leg 4 times, he must have gone to the hospital. But I didn't ask him to go to the hospital then because
All right.
I'm not interested in the records because they don't exist.
Well, they might exist, right?
You have them?
Object, argument.
Overruled.
This conversation you had with Christopher Vasata, when did that happen?
June 14th.
2019?
Yes.
How long did you speak with him?
Almost 2 hours.
And you didn't write a report about that, did you?
I have some handwritten notes.
Regarding the frontal lobe and the ability to plan, did you ask him about how he planned the night of the homicide?
I typically don't ask about I don't ask defendants about their role in a crime before it's done because I don't want to be a party to it.
Well, you are a party to it, you're
Well,
testifying.
not a party in the phase 1.
Okay. So my question is, you're here testifying about a possible impairment of his ability to plan. Did you ask him if his ability to plan the night of the homicide was impaired?
I am gauging from the imaging. His ability to plan is impaired. He's more likely to follow someone else's plan.
My question is, did you ask him about his ability to plan the night of the homicide?
I did not ask him about that. It was related to stated reasons.
And did you ask him about whether he was under the spell of somebody else that night and they planned it and he just followed along? Did you ask him?
I did not ask that question either because same reason.
And did you ask him about whether or not, how quick he made the decision to bring a firearm that night?
Same reason.
So the answer is no, you did not, correct?
Correct.
So is it fair to say you have absolutely no idea what was going through Mr. Vasata's head the night of the homicide, correct?
I wouldn't say I have no idea. I have probability of certain actions occurring because of deficits that we see on PET scan and MRI.
You took no action to even ask him about it, correct?
I did not ask him about his activity because I don't want to know at that time.
All right, thank you, sir.
Any redirect?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So, sir, your evaluation was not directed at determining Christopher Vasata's state of mind the night of February 5th, right?
Correct.
Okay. You were asked to do a neurological evaluation,
Correct.
like I assume you do routinely in your private practice for private clients.
That's what I do.
Okay. Now, you're asked a number of questions about records, and first of all, hospital records. I'm sure you have reviewed lots of hospital records in your day.
Yes.
Okay. And when you're looking at hospital records, do you frequently see in a 5-page discharge summary, 3 or 4 pages of sort of form language about, you know, what to do upon discharge and those types of things?
There's usually those kind of documents within a record.
And same with an initial page that just has basic information about who it is and how they came to be at the hospital.
Base sheet, yes.
Okay. So what you did review is the part of the medical record that describes the injury.
The recurrent laceration.
Yes. Now, when you have, in your private practice, when you have people come to you who believe they're struggling with some, you know, decision-making or, you know, their thinking they feel like is not as sharp as it should be, things of that nature, do they come with a hospital record of when they had an injury so that would explain it?
They come with a hospital record detailing the accident, but not ever their problem coming out of it.
And are there times when you have found people, again, in your private practice, when you're providing services to an individual, are there times that you have found neurological damage when the person never went to the hospital?
Sometimes when I'm doing an evaluation for attention deficit disorder, people have kind of acquired, and then I'll kind of go back in history and find that they actually were in a car accident, they had a concussion, and boom, now they have some ADD. Technically it's not ADD because it's sort of childhood, but you can treat it the same way.
So they didn't come in with a hospital record saying, see here, this is what I think is causing my problem?
Only when it's really severe. If they had an initial ER visit, if they had altered mental status, CAT scan showing blood in the brain, skull fracture, those are the cases that are pretty clear. It's all the other ones where you see airbags deployed, there's only an abrasion, there's nothing else. Those are still concussions. There's a varying degree of concussion, but it's still a concussion. And concussion is a brain injury. Many of those people, after about a year's time, can improve and still do pretty well, but some don't ever really get back to normal. They get to what I call new normal.
Now, talking about sort of kids and sports and the injuries that can occur as a result of football injuries or dirt biking, things of that nature, is it common or uncommon to have a specific date, time, and place and medical record to associate those possible injuries with?
Boys. No, not. They tend to get into a lot of injuries, and they're going to say to the mom or dad, and if they get the bell wrong, they shake their head and start going, keep going.
And whether or not the car accident caused it, or the record you have is sufficient, or there are injuries for which there are no records, does it change anything about what you saw on the scans of Christopher's brain?
It really doesn't, because the scans speak for themselves.
Those issues really just go to sort of etiology or origin.
They try to explain the mechanism of why it happened, not that it didn't happen.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions.
All right, you may step down, sir. Watch your step. Thank you. In defense, you ready to call your next witness? Amber Vasata, please. Ms. Vasata, good morning. Thank you for your patience. Watch your step. And when you get out here, if you raise your right hand and face the clerk for me. All right, you're going to have a seat right up there. Watch your step. Once you get yourself situated, please, please, please grab that microphone. Get it pretty close to your mouth. And once you're all in there, if you would state your full name for us.
Amber Vasata.
You may proceed.
Thank you. And Ms. Vasata, how old are you?
25.
And how are you related to Christopher?
He's my older brother.
Where do you live?
Currently in the state of Colorado.
For the past couple of years, have you lived in Colorado?
No, a year and a half. Before that, I lived in Melbourne, Florida.
And how about before that?
Jupiter, Florida.
So I want to ask you, this jury has heard a lot about your family.
Yes.
So I want to just ask you some sort of specific questions, okay? Did you, growing up, spend time with Juan Munon and his wife?
Yes.
Okay. Do you consider him your father?
Absolutely.
And what is his wife's name?
Ashley.
Did there come a time when Ashley had some challenges with substance abuse?
Yes.
And how would that affect her behavior that you saw?
There was a lot of arguing going on in the house, a lot of absence, even in her own mind and brain, having conversations with her. And I know it wasn't together like it was when we had first met her.
And so it was pretty apparent she was under the influence at different times.
Oh yeah, when we first met her, she was wonderful. We all really loved her and were great bonding with her, and she helped us out, she helped us grow, and we just slowly noticed changes, and they got worse as time went on.
And about what age were you as you started noticing the changes and the problems with her?
She actually came forward and admitted and apologized to subjecting it to us when I was probably about 8 years old. I think my little brother was 1.
And so Christopher would have been about 10.
Yes.
Did her substance abuse result in things like car accidents, other behavioral problems?
Yes.
And it did cause conflict in the home, as well as some changes in her behavior in your presence
Yes.
and in Christopher's presence.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to ask you a little bit about whether you know anything about Christopher's substance abuse.
With marijuana and shatter, yes.
So, what is shatter?
It's like a higher form of THC, pure THC.
And tell us all about, what did you observe with regards to Christopher and his use of it?
We smoked a lot. We smoked a lot, even as siblings together. I don't really know.
And was he using shatter
Yes.
even when you were there? And did his use seem to increase as he got older?
Of course, we all develop tolerances.
At the time of the homicides, February of 2017, were you living in this area?
No, I was in the state. I was actually in Massachusetts at that time for 6 months.
So now I want to just talk to you a little generally about Christopher as a big brother to you. What can you tell us about him?
My brother is very goofy, very funny. He's got a special kind of laugh. When he laughs, he kind of laughs inside out. He's always been there for us. There's been multiple times that we needed him, and whether it's just to confine in or to get help, whether it be financially or words of advice or a ride somewhere, and he's always been there. Even when it was hard or we were wrong, he always stood up for us. I don't know, there was a time that my older sister, Vanessa, got kicked out of someone's house, her friend Caitlin's house, and she needed me to go get all of her stuff that had been left out in the rain for 3 days, so I got it, and I put it in my car, and it's made my whole car smell like mold, so I pulled over and I threw it all away. There's no coming back from that, and he was the first person I called and told him, you know, your sister has a small duffel bag worth of clothes and she needs help, and he came and bought her new clothes.
Has he done that for you in terms of help you when you were financially in need?
Absolutely. Even when I wasn't even financially unable to do it, just made wrong decisions in spending my money, and you know, the only thing he ever required of us is that we told him the truth. So I couldn't lie and say that, you know, I spent it on going to Disney if he knew that I had spent it on drugs. I had to be honest for his health. That's all he ever asked of all of us.
And what about, you said, sort of confiding or emotional support?
Yes.
Are there things that you've gone through personally that you sort of relied on Christopher
Yes.
to help? Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah. For the year of my little sister's birthday, Becky, we go to the fair every year. It's been a family thing, and one year I promised that I would pay for everyone to go, and at the time I was addicted to drugs. So I spent all my money on it, and you know, he came forth and helped me out and told me that I didn't have to tell anybody in my family that I messed up. He had my back. There's been times that I got in trouble with the law shoplifting. And, you know, I called him and he came and picked me up because at the time he was of age to do that. And he dropped me off at home and, you know, just kind of told me, you know, you have to tell Mom, and offered to be there if I needed him to be there when I said it, because I hated getting in trouble and always found myself in trouble.
Was there a time when, because of some trouble with the law, that you got thrown out of your own home?
Yes.
And can you tell us about that?
Yes. I stole from my mom, and she had pressed charges on me, and so I ended up in juvenile court at 16, and my mom did not show for that, and I got placed on probation and was told that I wasn't allowed to live at the house because she couldn't trust me. And
Sorry, you were told by her that
by my mother that I couldn't live at the house, yeah. And so I moved out for a while. I had gone to my dad's house. I had gone to a friend's house that I was working with, and I ended up making it all the way to Boca Raton from Jupiter at my friend Savannah's house that I've known since the 2nd grade. And for a year and a half, maybe 2 years, my brother was the only person in my whole family that would talk to me or come and visit me.
Can he help you with things like going to your probation office, doing the things that you needed to do to get back on your feet?
All the time.
Is there anything else you'd like to
Yeah.
tell us?
My older sister, my girlfriend at the time, and myself signed on a lease in Melbourne. That's where I was living in an apartment complex. And the day we got our key, my older sister decided she didn't want to do it anymore, and she didn't want to live there. So she had moved, and my brother stepped up. He paid her a portion of the rent because he knew that I couldn't do it. Sometimes he even helped me pay my own portion. He came over, he saw me every weekend. He brought my siblings to me. I didn't drive until I was 19. I was terrified of it, so, you know, he has helped me so much. He put me on my first roller coaster. Told them no matter how bad she cries, don't let her off, and I love them now. It's one of my favorite things is to go to the fair. He has attempted to teach me how to drive, and I'm telling you, I hated it, but he never gave up.
He helped you get confidence in yourself?
Yes. He taught me how to do my very own backflip. Really encouraged that from the beginning.
You love him very much.
I love him so much.
Any cross? May step down. Thank you very much, and watch your step. Defense, next witness. Mr. Thomason?
Thomason, you're our investigator, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did I ask you to pull some text messages off phones that were already in evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I am showing you what's marked as Defense Exhibit 22. And admitted into evidence without objection.
All right, admitted.
So let me just hold it up here. And was this a text message from Christopher Vasata sent to Charles Warpable on January 28th?
Yes, 2017.
Okay. And this was in the phone records. We heard lots about the extraction earlier.
That's correct.
And it's a message saying, just keep throwing up anything I drink with a photograph of bottles of water.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's a message from Christopher to Charlie.
Yes.
And I'm going to show you what will be introduced without objection into evidence defense exhibit 23. And ask you if this is another text message that was on Christopher Vasata's telephone.
Yes, it is.
And that is a text message sent on February 5th. And it is sent from Mr. Vasata. And the message is, young man, I
submitted. Want to ask any questions?
There were texts after that though, right, between Stewart and Vasata?
I assume there were,
There were.
I didn't look at those.
All right. You may step down, sir. What's next, defense?
I got a picture.
Good morning, ma'am. Come out to the middle, raise your right hand, face Mr. Clerk for me. All right, you'll have a seat up there. Be careful. And once you get into the witness box, if you would please make sure that microphone is very close to your mouth to speak directly into it, and then state your full name for us, and slowly spell that last name for me.
My name is Angela Rosillo, R-O, S as in Sam, I-L-L-O.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Rosillo, what is your occupation?
I am a mental health counselor that specializes in addictions.
And can you tell us about your educational background that you acquired to do that job?
Yes, I went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, PA, undergrad, and for my master's in mental health counseling, I went to Nova Southeastern University in Davie, Florida.
What does a mental health counselor do? You're not a doctor, right?
We're not no, we're not doctors. We counsel clients in addictions, in marital issues,
Right.
a variety of things, yes.
And what is your practice? What is it that you actually do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, when I graduated, we moved to Delray Beach, Florida. And at that time, I didn't know it was the addiction recovery capital of the U.S. And so I began to see a lot of addicts. And so my practice primarily became drugs and alcohol, because when you have treatment centers on every other block, it was going to be the specialty I needed to master.
And how long have you been specializing in addiction counseling?
Since 2005.
Have you ever worked at, for example, substance abuse rehabilitation center?
Yes, I worked for Sober Living, and that was a drug rehabilitation center in Delray Beach, Florida.
And how long did you have that job?
I was a therapist, a lead therapist first for about a year, and then I went on to become the clinical director, and I was a clinical director for 2 years there.
And what did your duties entail?
It entailed overseeing all the other therapists to make sure they were doing their jobs, all the paperwork, the HIPAA compliance, help writing the program, improving it, things like that.
And today, do you continue to work one-on-one with people with addiction?
I do work one-on-one with clients, yes.
And I want to make clear, you have not met Mr. Vasata before today.
I have not.
Okay, but you were asked by our office to review several medical records from Jupiter Medical Center regarding Mr. Vasata.
That is correct.
Those have already been entered into evidence. But what period of time did those records cover?
It covered from 8/3/15 to 1/27/16.
So, I'm sorry, it's August 3rd, 2015 to, sure it's not September?
September, yeah.
Okay, so it's a span of about 13 months?
Correct.
Okay. And how many times was Christopher hospitalized during that period?
Approximately 10 times.
And what was the cause of those hospitalizations?
The records showed cyclic vomiting and dehydration. It wasn't until September 27th, 2016 that he actually got the diagnosis that I thought he should have had all along based on what I read, which is called CHS. I'm going to say the word because it's a big one. Cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome.
So we'll just call it CHS.
We can call it CHS.
Okay. And have you treated patients who have this condition?
Yes.
Can you tell us about this condition?
Yes, I want to say that this condition, we first saw a doctor in Australia in 2004, and he wrote about it online, about this. CHS is a condition when you are a long-term chronic daily user of marijuana. Some people, all people, get this syndrome. And so the doctor wrote about the syndrome where this syndrome has episodic vomiting, nausea, and belly aches. And the doctor saw this syndrome and posted it. And then other doctors from all over the world started to post about this. So when the United States, when we started to legalize marijuana, we started to see these symptoms of CHS. So it wasn't until 2012 when the Mayo Clinic said, I've got some interest in this. What is this phenomenon? What is going on here? So the Mayo Clinic took 98 patients, and they found this diagnosis to be scientifically proven. And then we began to see, then because we had the diagnosis, we began to see it and treat it.
So am I correct that the cause is essentially overconsumption of marijuana?
Yes. It has 3 phases to it. So the first phase is called the promotal phase. And you're smoking marijuana for long-term, chronically, over periods of months and years. And then the promotal phase, you just get nausea, you get stomach cramping, and the nausea is in the morning. And then you're still able to eat food, but you have fear of vomiting. The second phase is called the hyperemetic phase. And in this phase, you get the nausea, you get the stomach aches, but now you're getting a lot of intermittent vomiting. And you have difficulty with food intake, as well as maintaining weight. And the worst part of it is that you can get dehydration. And the dehydration can lead to severe problems if one doesn't take care of it. So if you get dehydrated from this chronic long-term marijuana use, you can have seizures, you can have brain edema, which is brain swelling, you can have heart arrhythmias, you can get muscle cramping and spasms, and shock.
I want to ask you in a little bit more detail about the symptoms.
Okay.
You had mentioned that in the second phase, the vomiting begins.
Yes.
So, how often does vomiting occur because of this syndrome?
Okay, so in my clinical practice, when I have clients, I would see them vomit 5 times in one day to 15 times and more. It is severe. This is an overwhelming and debilitating syndrome. I know for myself, if I get sick overeating some bad food from the Chinese restaurant, after throwing up 1 time, I'm done for the day.
And we'll get into a little bit of that issue where it seems like Christopher continued despite these symptoms.
Right.
Correct? You mentioned muscle aches. Is it common to see that people who are suffering from CHS taking very long hot showers?
Yes, and what I was going to say is the way you get relief from this is by taking hot showers. And the research shows it's because there's some research to suggest that it affects the hypothalamus. And so but once you stop taking the hot shower, then the pain and the nausea can begin again. So hot showers help, and then again, IVs for fluid so you don't get dehydrated.
So showering is essentially the patient trying to relieve their symptoms temporarily.
Correct.
Okay.
And I've had clients take multiple showers, 15 showers a day, because this is a severe syndrome.
So if I understand you right, someone who is in the second phase of CHS is essentially spending all day vomiting in the shower.
Yes, and trying to drink fluids.
Okay.
sometimes what they don't understand is that drinking more water actually can dehydrate you worse. You have to have electrolytes, but that's just the scientific piece, yeah.
Sorry about that. I want to show you Exhibit 22 that's already in evidence. So this is a picture from a text message sent from Christopher to Charles Warpagel, and you've seen this picture, right?
Yes, yes.
Now, you can see that there's a trash can and a bunch of bottles of water.
Yes.
Is this indicative to you of a CHS?
This is a very common picture, because when we go into the sober homes where our clients live, we see that on occasion, yes.
How long do those symptoms last if you don't get them treated?
They can last years. This is ongoing until you completely stop using marijuana.
So is that the cure for CHS? Stop using?
Yes.
So there's many people who use marijuana for medical or recreational purposes.
Yes. Marijuana has, as we can see now, there's CBD, which we see in lots of products, and then we have the THC in marijuana, which gives you the high.
But a lot of people use it and don't have issues.
A lot of people use it and don't have issues. Actually, the NIDA, which is the National Board of Addiction, they show that only 30% of the population gets addicted to marijuana. 30%. We don't know why yet. There's evidence to suggest it's genetics and environment, but we don't have 100% proof.
And in your opinion, as an addiction specialist, is addiction a disease?
It is a disease. We consider it as severe as cancer or diabetes
Why?
because it's a lifelong condition and it's severe and real.
When you look at Christopher's medical records
Yes.
in our hospital, do you see indications of addiction?
I do.
Why?
Because in spite of all of his numerous hospitalizations, he continues with the substance despite the dehydration, the nausea, the vomiting, etc.
Like with someone who's not addicted, would you expect that they experience this condition and they basically say, I'm never gonna.
Yes, they would say, I'm never going to do it again. This throwing up one time is too much for me. I've had it. But an addict will just keep going. They don't have that stop.
Were there times when Christopher left the hospital against medical advice?
Yes, Christopher left the hospital against medical advice 4 times.
And does that indicate maybe a level of denial that comes with?
Yes, addiction, some of the hallmarks of addiction are denial, minimization. Those are very big red flags, absolutely.
So I think a lot of people are familiar with, opiate addiction, where because you're withdrawing, you're hurting, right?
Right.
And then you're looking for your next fix because that'll take away the sickness.
Correct.
With cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, is it at the withdrawal or the use that's causing the syndrome?
It's the prolonged use.
Do you know what dabbing is?
Yes, I do know what dabbing is. So I just want to explain just a few basics so we're all on the same page. People used to just use marijuana. They would do joints, or now they call it blunts. But dabbing is taking the use of marijuana to a whole new level. So dabbing is where you use the marijuana oil, most dabbers will put it on a glass, non-flammable glass, and they'll use a blowtorch. And it creates a resin. And for example, let's say shatter. It turns into like a hard piece of candy. And they call it a dab because you only need like a dab of it to get this high. Before you'd have to smoke a few joints, 3 or 4, but with dabbing, you just get that little dab and you get a more potent high. So a regular, years ago, well, let's put it this way, marijuana joints used to be from 5 to 17% of potency, but these dabs have 50 to 90% potency of THC. It is super, super powerful. And if we look at shatter, shatter is the most potent of them all. That runs at 90% of THC. And so the ramifications on one's brain and body are tremendous.
So, speaking of shatter, so you mentioned THC.
Yes,
THC, if I understand correctly, is the active component of marijuana that actually makes someone feel high, right?
yes,
And so when you're talking about dabbing and the process of like getting it concentrated into that like brownish,
right. It becomes, yes, so it becomes like hard candy. And the reason it got the name shatter is if you break it, it shatters like glass, and that's why they call it shatter.
is it basically you're saying that that's almost pure THC?
Yes. And it also depends like who's making it, because sometimes I just like to read blogs, and I've had people brag that they're making it at, instead of 90%, at 99% strength.
In your experience, is shatter a starter drug, or is it more like people who develop such a tolerance that they have to move on to something more potent?
It's more, they develop a tolerance and they look for the next high. So that's, I would say shatter, they say, is the crack of marijuana. That's how strong it is.
So you had mentioned that there can be implications on the brain for so much use, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. So studies are showing that when you use a lot of marijuana, that it can affect your frontal lobe, which deals with making the right decisions, making good decisions. It almost like shuts off your ability to make good decisions. You don't have the ability to weigh the consequences. If I do X, Y might happen. It also works on motivation. You can become very flat. Like instead of having expression, all of a sudden you're just kind of blah. I guess they call that listlessness in the books, which means without energy or enthusiasm.
Can it stunt normal development and maturity?
Yes, well, your brain doesn't develop until you're 25 or 26, depending which scientist you're reading about. So it definitely does. It does hurt the brain. And, yeah.
Do people, do you see patients who are using marijuana so that because they don't want to address the problem?
Correct. Many people use marijuana to mitigate their pain, to make their pain go away. A lot of users use it because it becomes like their friend. They didn't get the love, the hugs, the compliments from their families of origin. So then they have this personal relationship with marijuana. I can always rely on marijuana because it's always going to be there for me, and it takes away my pain. My parents won't give me time to listen to me, to talk to me, to guide me, to help me. But this I can depend on. And it's almost like a relationship, like with the mafia. Like, I'm going to protect you, bro, and I'll do anything to keep you alive. And then we have the compulsion part of it. Like, it's like a lover. The drug becomes a lover. Do you know, when you're first in love, you're thinking about the person all the time, and you want to be with them all the time, and they give you such a high. And that's the way the drug becomes for these marijuana addicts.
What can be the impact on a brain that is already impaired by injury?
Well, I would say it's pretty catastrophic. In my clinical experience, I'm not like the neurologist that can see parts of the brain, but I can see they make poor judgments, they're getting in trouble with the law, they have difficult relationships, they isolate, they tend not to know how to socialize right anymore, etc.
These aren't excuses for bad behavior.
It's
Explanation.
explanations, correct.
So, is there, it sounds like a very painful condition, CHS.
CHS is overwhelming and devastating to them. And they even find it revolting. I've heard them say, this is just revolting because I'm just, expelling everything.
For someone who is experiencing those symptoms but continues to go back to the substance, in your experience, does that indicate emotional suffering?
Yes, it does indicate emotional suffering. They have a lot of shame around it because when I was reviewing his Christopher's medical records, he never said I use marijuana on a daily basis or frequently. It wasn't until 1/3/15 that he says I use it occasionally. On 1/31/15, he then finally admits it to the doctor that I use it daily.
Can it indicate an issue with self-esteem?
Yes, it indicates issues with self-esteem because they feel helpless that they can't get over this, they can't control their usage. So they feel dirty, damaged, broken, and defective. And it affects their self-esteem. I can't seem to beat this on my own. There must be something wrong with me. And, when my own family rejects me, then inherently there must be something wrong with me. So I'm just going to continue to use. And so they feel shame, they feel guilt, they feel depression, they feel anxiety. And then eventually they get to something called resignation. In the rooms or in addiction counseling, we call it the fuckets. Excuse me, I don't know if I'm allowed to use that word, but it's called the fuckets, and it's resignation. It just gets to the point where this is my life. I can't do anything about it. I'm just going to surrender into it.
You said that it becomes a friend. Is it the reliability of the substance that
Yes, it's the reliability of the substance. It's that the substance makes them feel euphoric. It tends to address the amygdala, which has the part of the brain that has euphoric recall. And it remembers that using is so wonderful. It makes you feel like the best you've ever felt. You feel relaxed, you feel healthy. All your problems seem to go away with it. So they seem to see it as a reliable friend.
With all the questions I have for you, I would like to admit, I believe without objection, Mr. Rosillo's curriculum writing. And we're at 24. That's all I have for this witness.
All right, and no questions? You may step down. Thank you, ma'am. Watch your step. And defense, what's next? Anne-Marie Brown, please. Oh, somebody needs a break? Okay. Let's take 5. Use the restroom, etc. And we'll come back.